Hey, it's your jungle expert Ryan Flares Doyle, welcoming you back to our patch 10.14 High-ELO tier list. You've all been waiting for this one for a while now, and without any further delay, let's get right into it. Starting us off in the top lane, our S tier roster will be Jax, Wukong, Renekton, Aatrox, Fiora, and Jace, with our god tier being Camille and Volibear. And as for the changes to the list, we have Sion coming from off the list to B tier, and this is mainly thanks to the boss, who is making Sion more popular thanks to the Titanic Hydra build, and has been improving in High-ELO in terms of win rate and play rate, and may even reach A tier very soon. Garen is going from off the list to B tier as well, and it's only because he is just barely good enough to make the list, but that's still impressive for Garen. Wukong going from God tier to S tier, and this is because the post nerfs to his R knockup, and people are finding some counter matchups like Malphite, so he dips slightly in the rankings but still remains a strong champ in S tier. We have Gnar moving from A tier to B tier, and without some major buffs, this champion just struggles to perform in solo queue, so we dropped him to B tier as the last round of buffs was just not enough. And lastly, Nasus and Lucian are both going from B tier to the Shadow Realm because we're cleaning up the list a bit and removing underperforming champions. Which leads me to our first champion spotlight with Camille, and Cam moved from S to God tier, and her stats are a whopping 56.66% win rate with a 16% pick rate in Masters Plus. She's performing extremely well right now and is able to beat staple top laners like Wukong, Volibear, Aatrox, Sett, Mord, Shin, and Jace. And it's especially important to note that she is hard countering Aatrox at the moment. Even though historically she struggles in lane versus Renekton, Jax, and Fiora, making her less blind pickable, she is currently outperforming those champs post laning phase. And one of her biggest strengths though is even in losing lane matchups, her gank assist and roaming potential to mid lane can easily allow her to snowball into a split push god even without winning the 1v1. So since High-ELO is all about that high impact skirmish game at the moment, she just fits right in. Next up we have Kennen, who moved from B tier to A tier, and this little menace is making his way back into the top lane with his ability to bully range versus melee champs into ending a teamfight on his own with the Flash R combo. He was struggling a bit to the Bork Death Dance users, just rushing him down. To solve this problem, people currently use 3 different setups: Conqueror, Phase Rush, and Spellbook. Though Spellbook is the strongest one and is being used by pros fairly often, the keystone is getting nerfed, so swapping between Conqueror for better 1v1 and Phase Rush for better teamfight and kiting will have to do. And for our last top lane highlight, we have Shin, who's moving from A tier and might move to S tier pretty soon. Shin is already pretty close to S tier with a 56% win rate and a pick rate of 5%. He's also seeing competitive play, and even though he's just a tank, as shown by Team Liquid's impact, he can still 1v9 games. Shin is just one of those few champions with a positive win rate into Volibear and Jax, though does have some decent counters like Fiora, Camille, and Vladimir, though they are all playable matchups since it isn't all about the 1v1 anyway. He is confirmed to receive some buffs next patch, so prepare to see him even more often in your games, as he is a fantastic pick in solo queue and is able to turn a losing bot lane into a winning one, which is the best way to impact the map and feel relevant in the top lane. Moving on over to my home sweet home in the jungle, our S tier roster will be Karthus, Elise, Rek'Sai, Echo, and Nidalee. With our god tier we have Graves, Lee Sin, and Kha'Zix. As for the changes to the list, we have Vi, Nocturne, and Sett coming from off the list to B tier, and we decided to add these 3 champions as viable options in the jungle, and Sett jungle has even seen some competitive play, but doesn't do so well in solo queue, while both Vi and Nocturne are growing in popularity and win rate post buffs in the latest patches. We have Nidalee moving from God tier to S tier, and Nidalee is still performing decently, but with the return of Kha'Zix to the meta, she's just being brought down a peg. Olaf's gonna drop from S tier to A tier, and his popularity in High-ELO is plummeting quickly as his play rate is roughly half of what it was a couple months ago, as people are finding out more overpowered jungles in the meta to abuse. And it pains me to move this, but Kayn is going to go ahead and move from S tier to A tier, and this is mainly just because junglers like Kha'Zix, Graves, and Volibear are hitting harder and much faster around the map, and generally just smash through Kayn until he can get his transformation around the 10 to 15 minute mark, which by that time the game's probably already over. So moving on to our first jungle highlight, we have Karthus moving from A to S tier. He has a 59% win rate, a 7% pick rate, and a 25% ban rate. This is higher than his peak was prior to his nerfs. The new buffs made him OP in almost every single role, including the jungle. The extra damage to champions combined with the move speed buffs allowed him to skirmish and snowball the early game much easier while still having one of the fastest clears and one of the best scaling. The other bonus here is how powerful AD mids like Zed or Talon have become, which have great synergy with Karthus in this meta. He currently has no losing matchups in D2+, even to stuff like Kha'Zix, who was previously a counter and is super strong in his own right. This is due to how strong Karthus dueling is currently when he actually is able to land Qs. Though this matchup does go Koth favored, again the higher up you go. Speaking of Kha'Zix, Kha'Zix is going to go ahead and move from A tier to God tier this patch. The new buffs to his isolation damage on Q were insane. This caused his dueling power and pick potential to skyrocket, and it made his clear faster as well. Though his standard setups of either Electrocute or Dark Harvest are still strong, the Conqueror Bruiser setup is still his most popular build in High-ELO. Also, there's this new interesting setup that's on the rise in High-ELO, which is his Q into W evolve with Phase Rush. We'll be keeping a close eye on this setup, especially since it feels like every other week a new jungler pops out of the woodworks and uses this setup. Looking at you, Graves and Nunu. Also, due to his newfound dueling power, he can match up against champs like Lee Sin and Graves in the early game and snowball out of control, then solo neutral objectives on his own extremely quickly. And for our final jungler, we have Hecarim, who moved from B tier to A tier. And Heck's doing a lot better after the back-to-back ghost buffs. He has a couple of different setups at the moment with Cinder Hulk, Warrior, or a Triforce Rush. The best one by far is still the Warrior Enchant first item if you're able to pull it off in the early game. And thanks to all the ghost buffs, he abuses a lot of immobile champs by chain ganking them and trading ghost for flash, then killing them with either his next ghost CD or his R. Also, Predator is just a bit of a trap and Conquer is still much better. And with Death's Dance, it's a very solid follow-up item to continue to snowball if you don't want to go tank items just yet. Next up onto the mid lane, our starting S tier roster will be Galio, Syndra, Talon, Orianna, Zed, with our God tier being Zoe and Twisted Fate. For the changes to the list, we have Nocturne coming from off the list to B tier, and he's a solid counter pick in the meta. He smashes popular champs like Galio, Twisted Fate, and Zed. We have Karthus coming from off the list to B tier as well, and the champ is OP in almost every lane and will likely see an increase in play mid very soon. LeBlanc moves from S to A tier, dropping mostly to other mid laners, becoming much stronger than her. Yasuo moves from S to A tier because his big brother is on the horizon and will bully him, much like how other champions are bullying him at the moment, and it doesn't help that Zed, a traditional counter to him, is one of the most popular mids in the current meta. Echo will fall from S to A tier because of the same reasons I gave for LeBlanc and Yasuo. Lissandra will take a tumble from A to B tier, and it's just mostly a counter pick at the moment, and she struggles versus the popular meta mages like Orianna, Twisted Fate, and Syndra. Azir falls from A to B tier. It's strong and competitive, but no one wants to play him around in solo queue, so he does much worse, as waiting for him to scale and then protecting him in teamfights is just a bit too much to ask for at the moment. Pyke's gonna take a dive off the list because the nerfs to Pyke last patch hurt his mid lane potential quite a lot, and though he's still doing okay, he's pretty fringed now and will likely receive some more nerfs if he stays viable. And lastly, Jace is going to move from B to off the list, and he's just removed because he's more of a top laner currently. So for our first mid lane highlight, we have Twisted Fate, who's moving from S to God tier with a 54% win rate, 12% pick rate, 11% ban rate, and Masters Plus. He's the most popular mid in the game for solo queue in High-ELO. He's one of the most contested competitive picks. He's actually so strong, he is lined up for both a direct nerf and a nerf to his best Keystone spellbook. He is by far the best blind pick mid at the moment with no hard losing matchups. They are all just playable. Though he does struggle a bit versus Yasuo, Zed, and Sylas. The way Twisted Fate roams and controls the match is just nutty. TF will win his side lanes due to his global pressure and with the consistent targeted crowd control and make it literally almost impossible to come back to beat him. Next up we have Zed, who moves from A to S tier. He has a 54% win rate, a 9% pick rate, and a 13% ban rate in Masters Plus. He is so very close to God tier at the moment. The W buffs were huge for his early game and playmaking potential, with the instant W allows him to combo easier, follow up on engages more consistently, and even make flashier escapes. With this increased outplay potential, Zed is consistently snowballing and running over games. His stellar performance is also helped by the power of some meta AP junglers, like Nidalee and Elise being popular and are strong, but also with the return of Karthus as well. And for our last mid lane highlight, we have Nunu moving from off the list to A tier. And this all started from one player in Korea hitting Challenger with mid Nunu post AP ratio buffs. Pros like Bjergsen and Faker took note and tried it out for themselves, which snowballed its popularity. Get it? Snowballed? It plays almost exactly like old Aurelion Sol or Talia, with you just spam roaming the whole game. Nunu's advantage is that his W clears the entire backline at level 1, and with his Q healing, you just can't push him out of the lane. You also can never be sure if he's roaming or ganking his own lane, as his 1v1, especially with R, can almost one rotation people early on. It's like having two junglers in solo queue, and this might be the only way to make sure at least one of them does their job. Into the bot lane we go, and with our starting S tier roster being Karthus and Kai'Sa, with our god tier being Ezreal, Ashe, and Aphelios. For the changes to the list, we have Senna going from off the list to B tier, and actually, Senna bot lane is making a bit of a return, so we added her just to the list. Vayne moves from S tier to A tier. Compared to the other S tier champs, she's not nearly as powerful, especially in a blind pick situation, so we're moving her down to A+. Miss Fortune is going to move from A to B tier, and is really falling out of favor post nerfs to her move speed, and only has a roughly 50% win rate, which is extremely bad for such a simple champ to play. Varus moves from A to B tier, and those nerfs to his E base damage and Q damage absolutely gutted this champ for solo queue at all skill levels, so he will move to the bottom of B tier and maybe the Shadow Realm. And for our last change, we have Lucian moving from A to B tier, and Lucian is pretty meh champion at the moment with comparable stats to Miss Fortune, so just like her, we're moving him down. So for our first highlight, we have the Frost Queen Ashe moving from A to God tier. She has a 56% win rate, a 25% pick rate, and a 9% ban rate in Masters Plus. Ashe is more popular than Kai'Sa, and that should tell you how strong Ashe is currently. People realize that Ashe has favorable lane matchups into most champions and is able to bully lane even versus Aphelios. Hawkshot is incredibly valuable in High-ELO for checking jungle pathing or not having to face check Baron. Her ultimate allows Ashe to have agency in the mid game by initiating teamfights or scoring picks, which isn't common for an AD carry. Ashe also has amazing synergy with the S tier High-ELO supports like Bard, Thresh, Karma, or even Lulu. Moving on, we have Aphelios moving from A to God tier as well, and Aphelios still has not had enough nerfs to bring him down. The last round was not enough. Similar to Ashe, he brings a lot of strong laning phase, teamfight DPS, and utility into the form of picks with his Gravitum gun. Kills people off a mile away with his turret and sniper combo, outduels divers with his pistol, sneaks Baron extremely well with his chakram. He can even crit and one-shot a whole team with his flamethrower. He's one of the best scaling late game champions, is one of the few AD carries that can truly 1v9 a game when he has items. And for our final AD carry, or I guess AP carry with this one, we have Karthus. He's going to move from off the list to S tier. He has a 62% win rate, a 3% pick rate, and a 25% ban rate. And yeah, this is a little bit of a low sample size, so it's a bit of a prediction, but believe me, he is currently one of the best bot lane champions. After his buffs, he is a fantastic laner, and in bot lane is even stronger as supports can help CC for him to land his Qs more easily. And even if they don't, due to the frequency and range of his Q, he is one of the few bot lane carries who can farm 1v2 and trade 1v2 and come out on top. Though he does hit 6 later on in the bot lane, it's not that big of an issue as he is quite often smashing lane. He's one of the few bot lane picks that can actually impact the map due to his global ultimate. The best part is when your team doesn't peel for you and let you die. Unlike Marksman, Karthus will still output insane damage in a fight. He is also a great counter to the dive heavy assassin / heavy melee clown fiesta meta. And last but certainly not least, for the support S tier roster, we have Senna, Lulu, and Karma, with our god tier being Thresh and Bard. For the changes to the list, we have Pantheon coming from off the list to B tier. Support Pantheon, especially in Korea and China, is getting pretty popular as an Aphelios counter or just overall early game map impact champion. He also gets to abuse the Umbral Glaive plus Zombie Ward for vision control as a added bonus. Zilean moves from A to B tier, and it's just a bit too passive of a laner for the current pace of solo queue. Even for an enchanter, he provides very little during the early stages of the game compared to more top tier picks like Karma and Lulu. Gragas is going to go from B tier to off the list, and it was a thing for a bit, especially when paired with Yasuo, but the hype died down along with his terrible pick rate and win rate, so he's just going to get removed. So for our first support highlight, we have Karma in S tier. She is the second most popular support right behind Thresh. She is extremely lane dominant and can often win lane 1v2, and is one of the most aggressive of the enchanter class. She works well with almost every AD carry in the game and even mage bot laners. She does particularly well with Ashe, Karthus, Draven, and Ezreal. She even has good roams and skirmish late game, the best out of all the enchanters. Though her late game isn't as strong as regular enchanters, her Mantra E is incredibly impactful for turning fights around. Next up, we have Pyke support, who is currently on the upper side of A tier. Post buffs to his support role, he's doing quite well. Despite losing a little tankiness, the added utility from the QCD and the extra E damage really helps him snowball the laning phase. Similarly to Panth being able to go Umbral Glaive and Zombie Ward, which is incredibly broken for vision control, especially on a champ like Pyke with his high mobility, allowing him to clear more dangerous warding locations on his own. One thing I thought I should mention is that Aftershock isn't that great on him anymore, compared to Halo Blades, which increases his ability to snowball early game, which is the most important thing for a Pyke player in any elo. Pyke works great with Draven and Jhin, but also with more unconventional bot lane combos like Karthus, Yasuo, Veigar, and Syndra. These are all very deadly lane combos, but I especially recommend playing with the Pyke Karthus combo in its current state in particular. And for our final support spotlight, we have Yuumi moving from B to A tier. And despite her last set of nerfs destroying her in low elo, she's actually doing fine in high elo, and we moved her down slightly too far last time. She's also going to receive a buff to her passive mana back soon, which will help her solidify her A tier placement. She holds a 21% ban rate in Masters Plus, has good synergy with Yasuo, Ezreal, Twitch, Lucian, and even Sivir. Though the list of AD carriers she has good synergy with isn't that high, she is mostly powerful for the fact that she can make snowballing bruisers or assassins unkillable and is one of the best scaling champs in the game. I mean, good luck killing an Aatrox, Camille, Jax, or Kassadin that snowballed with Yuumi on them. This is really the true value of picking Yuumi, not so much how well she does with Marksman and High-ELO. And that's all I got for you all today. Thank you all so much for watching, and be sure to check out our other content on this channel, as well as head over onto our website at mobalytics.gg. As always, I'm your host Ryan Flares Doyle, and as always, have a wonderful rest of your day. Be safe out there, remember that you matter, and good luck out on the Rift Summoner.